Hello, this is Dr. Michael Greger coming to you live from my treadmill, as I do every month, to answer any questions you may have. This year is particularly important because I'm not on the road. I'm writing my next book, and so I never get to answer anyone's questions anymore, at least face-to-face. But every month on YouTube and Facebook, we do live questions, as we are right now. For those of you unfamiliar with my work, every year I read through every issue of every English language nutrition journal in the world. So busy folks like you don't have to. I think we follow the most interesting, most groundbreaking, most practical findings into new videos and articles I upload every day to my nonprofit site, NutritionFacts.org. Everything on the website is free. There are no ads, no corporate sponsorships, strictly non-commercial, not selling anything. Just put it up as a public service, as a labor of love, as a tribute to my grandmother, whose own life was saved with evidence-based nutrition. All right, let us get to your questions. So I see there's a bunch of questions already up. I'll just start at the top. Sexina asks, my mother drinks a lot of cow milk, has extreme back pain problems. I told her to go plant-based, but she doesn't want to. Well, that's all we can do. Is share with them, is recommend to them. Often, sometimes when it comes to loved ones, it's difficult to hear. Sometimes difficult to hear recommendations coming from a fellow loved one, and so a third-party source, like a documentary, a book, website, something saying, "Oh, back pain. Oh, there's a video on NutritionFacts.org or elsewhere, that talks about how what we eat can actually play a role in back pain. Maybe you should check it out." Sorry. I normally turn that off, but had a bunch of interviews coming in today and didn't want to miss any. So yeah, all we can do is share, and then look, it's up to them. It's their body, their choice. They want to smoke cigarettes, go bungee jumping. It is up to them, but at least we can feel that we gave it a try. Unity, spelled with a 1, says, if you get your daily dozen, does being underweight still have detrimental effects to your body? Actually, being underweight, there's a whole caloric restriction movement. There's a whole movement of people trying to extend their lifespan by eating fewer calories than their bodies would normally consume, and they are underweight. And so it may actually have benefits. Now, it depends how underweight you are. I think in today's society, when people are like, "Oh, you look so skinny," you may just look so skinny compared to the average person who is actually overweight. 2/3 people in the United States are overweight. In fact, even more are what are called overfat. So even if your BMI is under 25, and so you're technically not overweight, you can still have too much fat, so much fat, particularly around your visceral organs, around your abdomen, that impairs your metabolic function, like high triglycerides or high blood pressure. And so, and if you talk about the number of Americans that are overfat, it's huge. The number's like 90%. So you may actually have an advantage, although certainly there is a level which people with anorexia, for example, reach, where one can run into serious problems being too underweight. Sexina asks, how to maintain one's good gut flora when on antibiotics? Well, if you're on antibiotics that kill your gut flora, there's not much you can do until you get off the antibiotics. And then if you're experiencing symptoms such as chronic diarrhea after being on antibiotics, then you may want to repopulate your gut by taking a mixed kind of acidophilus probiotic supplement. But, many antibiotics are actually absorbed in the small intestine, never make it down to the large intestine. And so, circulate throughout your body may actually spare your gut bacteria. There are certain antibiotics that are created to wipe out gut flora. And in that case, it may be a difficulty. But even in that case, often you beat your bacteria down, but not out. And so it's just a matter of feeding the good bacteria you already have, which is something called prebiotics, which is fiber-resistant starch, things that are found in whole plant foods. So by eating healthy, you can feed your good bugs, and they should be able to ramp up without having to do anything special. Vegan Jody asks, thank you. Oh, that's very sweet. You're welcome. T. Gifford says, what are my thoughts about using oral tolerance as a method for testing or treating RA, rheumatoid arthritis, by using a low dose of antigen to stimulate T regulatory cells, leading to an active immune suppression? I have never heard of such a thing. So the T. Gifford is suggesting that by eating like cartilage, basically, might your body become less sensitive? Might your body not attack your own cartilage? I would suggest instead. So I haven't seen any research on that either way. Instead, how about eating lots of whole plant foods? Have been shown to be remarkably effective in putting rheumatoid arthritis into remission. I've got a bunch of videos on that. Just type in arthritis or rheumatoid into NutritionFacts.org. Rosaxina asks, is juice from concentrate bad? It's no worse than juice not from concentrate, but that's not saying much. Juice is a fiber-depleted food. And so we should not, so that's a refined food. That's a yellow light food. If you just saw my recent traffic light video, I was so excited. It's been part of How Not to Die. But for those of you who haven't read the book, finally got a video made about it. And it talks about how foods can, in my mind, can be basically placed into three categories: red light foods, green light foods, yellow light foods. And so juice, fruit juice would be a yellow light food with the exception of tomato juice, which is in the green unless it has added sodium. Flyshacker asks, are the chemicals used to decaffeinate green tea harmful enough to offset the benefits of drinking green tea? Some decaffeination processes don't really use chemicals. But the decaffeination process itself does remove some of the nutrition, some of the nutrients that it's the reason we drink green tea in the first place. But for people that the caffeine bothers them and they wouldn't drink green tea at all or would drink less green tea, then by all means drink decaf green tea. So, I mean, any green tea is better than no green tea. But if it doesn't bother you either way, then, regular green tea actually does have a little bit more of those nutrients. But the important thing is to get as much as possible into your body. And so decaf is fine, particularly after 4 p.m.-ish, where we really shouldn't try to consume caffeine because it can interfere with our sleep. All right, Reynos Contos. Hello from Cyprus. How cool is that? I'm looking outside to snow. I assume Reynos is not looking out to snow in Cyprus. God bless the internet. Any tips on eczema, he asks, or she asks. I've got a few videos on eczema, on what you can eat, but you can put inside your body and on top of your body. Basically, the key is emollients in terms of what you can put on your body. So, and the greasier the better. Something like petroleum jelly to basically boost the barrier function of your skin. And then there's topical corticosteroids. And they also have videos on dietary approaches, what you can actually eat on the inside to help with skin conditions on the outside. Just type in eczema, and you indeed spelled it right. ECZEMA, that's a good spelling, B word, into NutritionFacts.org and check it out. Ro is back asking, honey is supposedly cruel to bees and killing their population. Are there healthier sweeteners alternatives? Certainly not killing their population. Oh, I mean, people raise more bees. What's killing bees, probably more pesticides than honey production, right? We actually grow more bees to make honey. Not that, anyway, are there healthier alternatives? Absolutely. The healthiest nutritive sweeteners, meaning caloric sweeteners, are blackstrap molasses and date sugar or date syrup. I have recipes for date syrup in How Not to Die cookbook. And so it's a whole food sweetener. It's just whole dates, either pulverized into powder. Date sugar is not really sugar. It's a whole plant food. And same thing with date sugar. You basically soak some dates and whip it up in a blender with something else. I forget. And yeah, so those would be healthier sweetened alternatives. Oh, I have some videos coming up on monk fruit. I already have a stevia video. So yeah, monk fruit video coming up soon, which is another natural sweetener. Lore Divine, and if you are not subscribed to my daily videos, subscribe, of course, for free at NutritionFacts.org. Lore Divine asks, do I have any information on CBD oil and or kava root for anxiety? There's no good data on CBD oil for basically anything, even childhood pediatric epilepsy, surprisingly. And kava may be toxic to your liver. You have a little caveat: prepared in the traditional way. I'm not aware that it has to do with preparation, but with components within the root itself. However, maybe the traditional way of preparing it removes those components. I'm not sure. Healthy, healthy, loving, the Most High. There's a name. What do I think about 3 kcal fruit-based diet? All vitamins would be on point with small amounts of chicken liver for vitamin B12. A fruit and liver diet. What do I think about that? I think that sounds like a terrible diet. I mean, we all want to get lots of fruit. Probably the number 1 dietary risk factor for death in the world, inadequate fruit consumption, according to the Global Burden of Disease Study. But where are you going to get your vegetables and whole grains and legumes, beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils, and mushrooms, and herbs and spices, and nuts and seeds, all sorts of other wonderful things? I would do that rather than just eating fruit and liver. Ro asks, is raw garlic okay? Yes. It burns, stings my tongues when I eat it. It's garlic. It's supposed to burn and sting your tongue. Yes, it is okay. But, I mean, it's not, you shouldn't just like chew up a garlic clove and swallow. You can actually hurt your esophagus. You will feel it. You will get some heartburn from that. But in terms of crushing it or chopping it into dishes, absolutely go for it. In fact, maybe more healthy than cooked because it destroys that enzyme. I've got a video about that. But you can cook garlic, but if you chop it, wait a while until the enzyme does its thing, then you can kill the enzyme. Doesn't matter because the product that you care about is heat stable. Kevin Ross Cornerford asks, hello from Ireland. Hello from Ireland. I have hypothyroidism. Any advice for foods to avoid to optimize weight loss with hypothyroidism? Well, you should get your hypothyroidism treated is what you should do. Treat the cause. And if the cause of weight gain is hypothyroidism, you treat the cause. And then you treat the cause of the cause. What's causing your hypothyroidism? Sometimes it could be something like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, some kind of autoimmune disease where you scar up your thyroid and then you got to take thyroid hormone replacement for the rest of your life. But there are other causes of hypothyroidism, underactive thyroid function, like inadequate iodine intake. And so if you're not getting enough iodine, that can be a problem. And then clear up get enough iodine, thyroid function is okay, and then weight is okay. Always treat the cause whenever you can. All right, Ro was so smart in building up a whole bunch of questions and then asking them all, so I get to them all. So here's another one from Ro Saxena. What are your thoughts on sun exposure and sunscreen? I hear both are dangerous. Many sunscreens contain harmful active ingredients. So I have videos on sun exposure and both the pros and cons in terms of vitamin D production, and the cons being melanoma. But there are more pros than just vitamin D production. That's why you can't fit the sun into a pill. All sorts of cool things like the sun's rays actually go through your skull and actually have effects in your body. The long red rays and can help your body reestablish its CoQ10 levels. All sorts of really cool stuff. And produces nitric oxide, and there's all sorts of beneficial things to sun exposure. But of course, too much sun exposure can increase one's risk for the deadliest kind of skin cancer called melanoma. So check out my videos in terms of proper timing, etc. Does sprouting beans eliminate lectins? Depends on what kind of bean you're talking about. You cannot eliminate the lectins in red kidney beans, for example, by sprouting. It's basically the size of the bean. So really small beans, like mung beans, which are typical bean sprouts, or lentils, sprouted lentils. There's some good little beans to sprout. You can sprout chickpeas. So small beans, you can typically, small beans you can sprout fine, but the big beans like kidney beans, the sprouting process does not eliminate the lectins. And boy, you ate some sprouted kidney beans, you would be in for a world of pain. Tamar V is, or Tamar the 5th, is eating ground flax seeds, a tablespoon a day, enough to get enough omega-3s, or do you recommend an algae-based supplement based on inefficient ALA to DHA conversion? Ooh, I love it. Advanced questions. I love all questions, but it's great that people are following along here. For adequate short chain to long chain for that elongation process, right? So in plant foods, there's short chain omega-3s, alpha-linolenic acid, which is found in chia seeds and flax seeds and walnuts and hemp nuts. And our body can take those and produce those long chain fish fats, DHA, EPA. The question is, is our body efficient enough to do it, to get enough? And so I have a bunch of videos about that. And so the question is, can I just stick to short chains, or should we also add long chains? And I conclude my video series by saying we should indeed consider taking long chain omega-3s preformed into our diet, 250 milligrams a day of EPA and or DHA. And my point-by-point rationale on how I arrived at that recommendation — I never arrive at supplementation recommendations lately — is in the video. Now, you may watch that video and be like, I'm not convinced, in which case, don't take it. But I was convinced by the available data, though still very controversial. Robertuska says, should we avoid avocados, nuts, and white potatoes? No, we shouldn't. Those are all green, light foods, though certainly sweet potatoes are healthier than white potatoes. Anything you can do with the white potato, you can do with the sweet potato in a healthier manner. Although actually white potatoes are more satiating. I was just reading about satiation, and white potatoes are the most satiating food out of 100 foods, I believe, that are tested, which is interesting. Anyway, but more nutrition in sweet potatoes. Okay, Matthew Reed asks, blood work says T3 totals low. Any thoughts? So T3 is a thyroid hormone. The most important thing is your body will tell you how your thyroid is doing by a TSH level, thyroid stimulating hormone level. So that's what you're interested in most. If your TSH is fine, then your thyroid is fine, basically. So that's what I would look at rather than T3 or T4. And Rose agrees. Obviously, she must have seen a squirrel. Mary Kessler asks, is there any danger to the kidneys or other organs in eating large amounts of vegan protein every day? It's large amounts of vegan protein. Yeah, there's certainly any kind of protein. I mean, there's certainly a limit to which any amount of protein can be metabolized in one day. Your body has to take the amino group of the amino acids that make up protein and get rid of it and turn it into urea and get it out of your kidneys. And so you could certainly stress out your kidneys with huge amounts of protein intake, but you wouldn't get those from eating whole plant foods. You'd get those eating like protein powder supplements or something. But if you're eating whole plant foods, I'm not worried about eating too many lentils or too much hummus in a day. But I would stay away from protein powders for a variety of reasons, including contamination and all sorts of things. Anyway, okay. Marie also asked, why doesn't food with high calcium content, when eaten, spike the blood level of calcium as do supplements? Great question. So I have these videos Are calcium supplements safe? Calcium supplements effective? Two different videos. When I talk about the reason we think calcium supplements are so harmful is because of this huge spike in calcium in your blood when you take supplements. And Marie says, well, wait a second. When you eat high calcium foods, why doesn't the same thing happen? It's because of the difference in dose. I mean, a calcium supplement can have 600,000 milligrams of calcium, whereas, the food has much less. And so you have to eat lots of calcium-rich foods throughout the day, and you build up to however much you need, which I would recommend 600 milligrams a day worth. I mean, look at how much calcium some really calcium-rich food like kale has. There's a lot of calcium, but nowhere near what you get in supplement form. And so what you do is your levels never spike like they do when you take it in pill form. All right, Keegan asks, do defatted nut butter powders contain glycotoxins, AGEs? Ooh, that would depend on the processing method. So if they roasted it, then yes, I would imagine it would be very high. Although depending on maybe when they defatted it. If they defatted it and then roasted it, that's a good question. So it would depend on the processing. But in general, I would just stay away from roasted nuts and seeds, nuts and nut butter. So get unroasted raw almond butter rather than roasted because of the AGEs. But in terms of what about those powders? Good question. I don't think I've ever seen it tested, but that's a great question. Maybe I'll come across it and I can get that to you. Julie Craveling asks, is it unusual for someone on a whole food plant-based diet to have a high LDL? Yes, it is. I'm 48, healthy weight, eating healthy, high LDL. So high LDL in someone is eating, so it's a bell curve. So the average person eating a healthy plant-based diet has a perfect blood pressure, 110 or 65, has a perfect cholesterol, like 143 or something, total cholesterol. But look, it's a bell curve, and some people are even lower, and some people are too high. And in that case, you shouldn't just ignore it. You should do something about it. Now, but in this case, in Julie's case, it seems to suggest that her levels have gone up. So it's not just where she falls eating healthy, but it sounds like there's something in her body actively pushing up her LDL. And so for someone eating a plant-based diet, the most common causes, if it is indeed whole food plant-based, so you're not eating junk food, which can have trans fats and saturated fats and dietary cholesterol, which increase your LDL cholesterol. There are rare plant sources of saturated fat, like coconut oil, cocoa butter, palm kernel oil, palm oil. And so someone comes to me who's eating healthy with high LDL, those are some of the first questions I asked them. Did they all of a sudden go on some coconut oil craze or something? If that's not the case, the next thing would be to check your thyroid function. So hypothyroidism, an underactive thyroid gland, can increase your cholesterol levels regardless of what you eat. If that's the case, you treat the hypothyroidism, your thyroid function comes back to normal, and your cholesterol will then should drop like a rock to reflect your wonderful diet it sounds like you're on. Okay, Yar Saki asks, any ways to treat a swollen uvula with diet? Depends what's swelling your uvula. As always, treat the cause. The uvula is a little thing sticking out of the back of your throat. Uvulitis. So you need to find out what's causing the swelling and then remove the cause. And so if the cause was some kind of hypersensitivity to some food, well, then indeed, of course, you can fix it with diet. But if it's some other reason, like an infection, then just eating generally healthy to support your own body's ability to fight it off, unless it's something like strep or something where you need antibiotics, that would be the way to go. Brian Fagan, what are my thoughts about black seed oil? I can say, what is black seed oil? Very fascinating. So black cumin seed oil, there's this large body of literature. It's actually one of the few things, there's a huge, large body of literature about it in the field of nutrition that I have not done videos on. Another one is bitter melon. Those two are on my high to-do list, and we'll have lots of videos coming out about each. The problem is the reason I can't just give a simple answer is because there's lots of literature. So it's not like you can just read one or two articles, be like, this stuff is great, this stuff is terrible. There's this huge body of literature. You got to read every single article ever been published about it. So then you can say it's good, bad, or it's good in these circumstances, bad in these circumstances. So stay tuned. I have not forgotten about black cumin seed. Chris Paul, is responding to Julie. Marie asks, is there any danger? Oh, we already got that one. Lord Divine, is there any merit to a low FODMAP diet? So FODMAP diets have been used to treat irritable bowel syndrome. That is another high priority issue because, so I don't want to say too much just because I have not reviewed the literature. My gut reaction, no pun intended, because it has to do with your gut flora, is that rather than cutting out these really healthy foods, I mean, these FODMAPs, these oligosaccharides, these are like prebiotics. So you're basically cutting out prebiotics. You're cutting out food for your good bacteria. Now, presumably, if you have irritable bowel, you have some bad bacteria who also may be eating the FODMAPs. So getting rid of the FODMAPs and your bad bacteria may not cause those symptoms anymore. But he said, what about treating the cause, getting rid of the bad bacteria in the first place? But I have to review that data as well. Gregoire 12345 asks my question: is there any association between nutrition and male pattern baldness? Not that I'm aware. There's a genetic component. It's associated with increased testosterone levels. I remember the early data suggested it was increased risk of lots of the bad things like heart disease, etc. But I don't know what the recent literature is. Anyway, you can certainly help with the heart disease with the diet, but not with male pattern baldness that I know of, although it's not something I've looked into. Lord Divine asks, is fasting helpful? Oh, fasting helpful for improving digestion when the diet is already whole food plant-based. Fasting helpful for improving digestion. I don't typically think of fasting as digestion improving. In fact, if you water only fast, you're actually your intestinal tissues actually start atrophying away because they're just so energetically active. So basically, your guts are only about 5% of your body weight, but take up about 25% of your resting metabolic rate. 25% of your calories are used just to keep your gut active. I mean, it makes sense when you're eating because the calories in outweigh the calories out. When you're not eating, your body starts pulling away your intestinal lining. That's why you have to go really slow after a long water-only fast to grow back your gut lining. You can't just eat a meal. You can run into real problems. Anyway, so yeah, no, but fasting may have benefits for other things. And that'll be part of my fasting series, which I hope to do a workshop on. I've done a couple times before, where we do like a 4-hour live cool thing, talk about everything you ever need to know about fasting, caloric restriction, ketogenic diets, and caloric restriction. Those 3 things. Oh, and intermittent fasting. Water only and intermittent. Those 4 things all go kind of together. You can't really do one without doing the others. And so, but that will have to wait until the book manuscript is handed in. Asa Gears, Raw Vegan Recovery, asks, is tofu healthy? Whenever you ask, my poor treadmill, given up. Thinks it's been on for so long, it thinks nobody's on it. But I'm on it. I'm always on it. So whenever you ask, is food healthy, you have to say, well, compared to what? Compared to a whole soy food like edamame or tempeh or miso? No. But is it healthy compared to what most people would eat tofu in place of? Absolutely. Tofu, you take a whole soybean, you remove about half the fiber, half the minerals, and you're left with tofu, kind of the white bread of the soy kingdom. But soybeans are so incredibly healthy, you can remove half the nutrition, still get a really healthy food, but whole foods are even healthier. So edamame, is a nice snack. Whole food sources of soy is better. If you want something like a tofu-ish, kind of texture or something, tempeh is better. All right. And unfortunately, I am out of time. But next month, I will continue to do my Q&As on Facebook and YouTube. And so hold your questions till then and look forward to answering them then. Bye, everybody. Stay warm.